What's going on? My name is Joe. I practice talking on the internet. And as usual, if you enjoy the conversation, or at least the conversation starter that I do over here, you can support me on Patreon. So for 5, 10, or $25, you can support what I do in terms of bringing out content about different types of topics. And stuff like that. I have different commissions, so regardless of the tier that you select, you have a different variation of commission videos that you could participate in. For example, for $5, you get a crack at one commission video. $10, you get the option of one per month, and then at 25, you get an unlimited amount of commission videos. Obviously within reason, and we can figure out the parameters of that if you show your support there. I want to at the end thank Rebecca, Frackle, Eric, Valentine, and Michael for their contributions to the people. Also, soft announcement, I'm going to be in Washington February 22nd for the Culture Wars Showdown. This is done by the folks over at the Walkaway campaign. This is a 3v3 debate structure on topics like racism and white supremacy, transgender ideology, capitalism versus socialism, abortion rights, Antifa/BLM, Trump, Biden, queer theory, CRT, and much, much more. The tickets are $3. And it's going to be in Seattle at University of Washington. So if you are in that area and you want to kind of have a little bit of a cheerleading squad, because I'm dealing with righties with social media sizes twice or 3 times is greater than mine, feel free to come to that. $3 is a nice little lane, and I hope you come. I'm probably gonna use the funds that I'm doing to collect for this trip to set aside about 10 tickets for individuals within my camp corner. So if that's something that you're interested in, just let me know. We can get that kind of sorted out. And straight away, it's taken care of. And maybe we could do like a meetup or something. I don't fucking know. But anyway, that's on February 22nd. It's a live debate. If you can't make it, it's also going to be streamed. Some people you might know from that are Redeem and Stardust. They're on the side of the left. So it should be a fun little trip to be had. I want to talk a little bit about a conversation that Destiny and Radical Coder had. It was pretty fucking terrible. And Radical Coder, I'm going to put on record, is a fucking moron. And I understand that there's this liberal desire to defend blacks, but that's not the way to do it. And going on the space of Destiny about it isn't the way to do it. And I'm pretty sure this is a continuation of a conversation they had when they were campaigning or canvassing down in Georgia. Correct me if I'm wrong, because within that documentary that Destiny posted, there was like that whole, like, they were just debating about like the very ideas of education within the scope. It was just weird. And I'm pretty sure that was Radical Coder who was down there doing that back and forth with Destiny. It seems like this was a continuation of that conversation, and it was just, I wish I could get my time back for that, because that was awful. It was based around, in part, and it peered off in different ways, around the pathway to equitable math instruction and the idea of like racist, quote unquote, racist math. And basically, like, I'm just gonna if your time is short and you don't really give a shit about this, is that this is a pathway of equitable math instruction. It's basically reimagining math instruction and understanding that there is structural injustice that exists within mathematics, and there's multiple strides about like the process. So there's stride 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They continue to do meetings about this in different instructional coaching and stuff like that, but the average individual who like hears the idea of like racist mathematics and shit, they're not reading this. Like, I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you guys. If you thought that people were going to read this, they're not going to read almost 200 pages worth of shit that has nothing to do with their everyday lives. But it matters in terms of education. And the problem is that people currently are having like an improper understanding of the fight. And this is no shade to Radical Coder, but he fell into the same type of I don't understand what the problem is trap, so I'm going to virtue signal in front of about black people. It's the same fucking problems, and I'm getting annoyed. So, um, I kind of want to clarify a few things, and then I'll get you guys out of here. So first and foremost, Irony OC Fringpalm did a fantastic video, which is very very short. Short is good about what is structural injustice, and I'll probably put a card somewhere so that you can watch this video separately on your own time. But he lays out the idea of structural and particular injustice and the differences between the two of them. A particular injustice is an injustice where there's a person, sometimes persons, that are targeted. And within that targeting, there's a blameworthy target. And then there is legislation that can lead to restitution. What that looks like in terms of education is that you have a person who, or individuals who are explicitly targeted. There's a blameworthy individual within that, and then there's a way that you can redress these problems as a matter of policy and procedures that are around these things. Structural injustice is an injustice where people are targeted by virtue of their social position, and there isn't a blameworthy target. There isn't like a boogeyman bad guy that exists within the issue that you're looking at. And the problem with tackling structural injustice is that the reason why these results are coming about within a structural injustice, in this case, non-white and non-Asian students are doing terrible at mathematics, is that the institution itself of education, in this case mathematics education, is designed in such a way where Black, Indigenous, Latin students, just to name three groups, are behind. And the level of behind is going to vary from one racialized group to another. And the problem is that the data also pans this out. So when we're looking at, and we can just look first at the achievement levels when it comes to NAEP. So the NAEP is basically just saying, like, are students achieving at the level of proficiency or better? And there's a metric of basic. Basic is the minimum, and then you have like everything above that. So you can just go down to these stats and you can see that, okay, in 2019, excuse me, you have 34% of students at proficient, and then at basic it's 69%. But when you just aggregate the data, you start seeing racialized problems. So if we look at Asian and Pacific Islander, in 2019, they're at 88% basic, 86% basic. That means 88 and 86% of this demographic are performing at the basic level within math proficiency. Then when we go to proficient, it's at 64% and 62%. Now, if we go to Black, in 2019, at proficient, 14%. And if we go to basic, 47%. This is in 2019. This is the most recent data set that we currently have. But then when you look at it for the entire scope, okay, American, Indian, Alaskan Native is at 51%, Blacks at 47%, Hispanics at 57%, Native Hawaiians at 55%, then two or more is 73%, white is 80%. So what's happening to Black students in mathematics where they're under the 50 percentile when it comes to basic, and then at proficient, it's at 14. So what's happening there? The way that math education is structured is creating this outcome. And it's a racialized outcome. There isn't like the instructor at the highest tower saying they want to persecute the Blacks. It's just how the institution of math education is constructed in the United States that's creating these outcomes. So if you are white or Asian, you're chilling. 64, 62% proficient, and that's at or above proficient. For white students is at 44. Oh, that's not so good. That's not so good. But then for native Hawaiian, it's 21. Hispanic, it's 20. Black, it's 14. But then when you look at basic, it's like, oh yeah, look at that. The whites are doing great. 80%. The two or more race camp, 73%. And then you have native Hawaiian, 55. Hispanic, 57. Black, 47. But then Asian and Asian Pacific Islander, 86, 88, chilling. So a disproportionate amount of Asian Americans and white Americans are doing fine in expressing that they can be basically proficient in mathematics at the level that they're talking about within these strides, which is 6th through 8th grade. And if we got to recognize that this is a pivotal point when it comes to education, because even when we look deeper down and then we look at something that's used for college admissions, SAT scores based on demographics, it starts to pan out as a problem. Because as you see when it comes to the SATs, for example, white Americans are scoring on average 1112. Asian Americans are 1239. 1239 on average is incredible. That score is going to open a lot of doors for you. But for black people, a 934, that's not a no. 967 puts it like, what's happening here in the education system where you get white and Asian students performing pretty much on par, if not better on average. But then when you look at the mathematics, and my big old head is in the way, so let me hide myself for a second, we can see that the math scores are trailing as well, that black students are the lowest next to two or more, not even the two or more races, excuse me, they're just the lowest period at 457 in mathematics. And then when you look at it on the total of all students, it's an average of 528 and they're at 457. So then when we look at the average, you know, white students are performing above average, Asian students are performing significantly above average, two or more races is above average, and then you have all these other groups that are lagging behind. So the problems aren't as simple as saying, oh, we just need to get rid of the ACT. Oh, we have to completely reimagine what's going on with mathematics. That might not necessarily be the case. There's something structurally that's happening that is causing the result that black students are lagging behind. And the thing that should be clarified here is that this is a structural injustice. There's nothing like there isn't this silver bullet that's going to help black people that you need to like the best way I can describe it, that you need to like explicitly target the blacks, and there's like something that's going on that's pathological with black people. If you start going around those routes and start saying that like, well, black people just learn different than white people, and it's like, no, you're gonna look like an idiot. What's important to understand and recognize is what within the social position that these groups are in is creating these problems. Are the resources that are within the institution distributed in such a way where black students can access them in the same levels as white, Hispanic, and Asian students? This could be something as simple as tutors. This can be something as simple as the cost of the exams themselves. This can be the cost of the secondary instruction themselves. There could be a lot of different ways to look at these problems and try to solve for them. But the thing that you got to recognize when you're having these conversations is that there isn't this blameworthy target that exists within education that you can point the finger to. You can point to that bad teacher. You can point to that bad administrator. And if you kick those motherfuckers out, the results are going to be better for students. That's not the case. This is a structural issue. And you're going to have to go a little bit deeper than a singular stride of dismantling racism in mathematics. This is a very comprehensive approach, which is good. Like, this isn't a bad piece of text, but the problem is that like when you start reading the text, you start losing people, because like the problem is when you're like reading these things, a lot of people are just like, what? It's just math is racist? But how is it racist? And again, they're not going to read these things. So you're going to have to approach these arguments a little bit differently, where it's like, hey, we can look at the data and see that black students in mathematics are significantly behind with all the resources we currently have and all the educational tools we currently have. And since 6th through 8th grade is a pivotal moment in the educational development of students, we don't have the time to fuck this up. So what are we doing that we can adjust so that black students, teen students, indigenous students are achieving and working towards math as proficient, or at least the minimum requirements of basic as it relates to the NAEP. And something that you'll probably have to do is look at this thing and go, okay, it appears like there are different ways that we can assess mathematics and the way that we can assess progress in mathematics, and let's look at these ways. I'm not going to use this video to give you like the it's not, this isn't a fucking video essay. Go to FD Signifier for that shit. The thing that we got to clarify is that we had to stop getting into this weird pseudo essentialism when we're talking about these problems. Like we get to start from the basic level that as a institution of mathematics and mathematics education, it's producing these results. And the result is, and we can just pull to the data, is that Asian students and white students are performing at, if not better, and all other racialized groups are performing in ways that we might not consider satisfactory. 57 is not satisfactory. And then when we look at just then basic is the minimum requirement. Then when we go to proficient, then proficient, we are seeing incredible disparities, including for white Americans. So what's happening there? And that's going to be a complicated conversation that's way out of my league. I'm not in math education, so that's their fucking problem. But the data is there, and we can look at the data. And we had to, and like taking a much more data-driven approach to these things, and then like based upon the data that we're looking at, like what are we seeing, and then we can roll with it from there. But yeah, this idea that like math is racist, it always like goes into these, or like the SAT is racist. It always goes into this idea, or at least like alluding to in the conversation, that there is like something that's essential to, or I don't want to say pathological, but something that is like genetic when it comes to black people, that they're performing poorly, or you get people who think that there's like a blameworthy target within the institution, and that if we just find that person and drag them up and reveal their mask a la Scooby-Doo, that these things are going to be solved. And those are just like really, really poor analysis. And then like you get to like really weird questions, and it's like, well, what is it about, like it starts being like this sort of like, what is it about black people? Like you got to pull the one thing that's different about black people than it is to other students. And it's like, then once you start doing that that's even worse, because like the people who are having these conversations, like Radical Coder, don't read. Like they do the very like surface level of understanding these things, but again, it's not their fault because they're not in math education. So you're not going to get like this, well, what's happening to black students is causing them to be so savagely behind. That's because of the fact that they're black. Because if you're doing it that way, you're missing the plot, because the institution is structured in such a way where it's creating this outcome. It's not overtly targeting black people because they're black. They're being targeted some way, in part because of the social position that they're in society. So then we're gonna have to look at that social position. I'm yelling. But anyway, if this is something that you kind of are interested in, sure, read the strides. And and think about the ways of like, okay, how are we dismantling racism in mathematics instruction? How are we fostering a deeper understanding? How are we creating conditions to thrive? How are we connecting critical intersections? How are we sustaining equitable practices? And then like you can just read this and do all the things that they have and have fun. Like, they just had some modules in October of deep dive sessions. This is like an ongoing thing, so feel free to read the stuff. Most people they'll just read like portions of Stride 1 and then think that like that's all they need. Again, like I hope this was kind of clear. It's a little ranty. I am getting frustrated at conversations around structural injustices that are generally insufficient, and they start getting really like close to racial essentialism and but very close to I don't read, and it gets really complicated. But again, to kind of like close this out, the problems that exist within math education are structural, and it's a structural injustice. A structural injustice does not have a clear blameworthy target that you can point to, that you can institutionally remove in order to solve the problem. You're going to have to, as a means of structural redress, completely change how we teach mathematics. And the way that we have to change the way that we teach mathematics is recognizing that there isn't a one size fits all for all groups of students. We're going to have to do a better job at meeting students where they're at, not only as a means of their social position, but as a means as their ability to educationally self-determine themselves. If we continue on this road of particular injustices, thinking that like there's a blameworthy target and we can use the policies and procedures in place to like redress, it's just going to cause some problems. So again, I should have, if I did my editing homework properly, I put a card to this video about structural injustice by Arami O.C. Frimpong. He has a good job at clarifying structural injustice, and this might be something that could be very helpful for y'all who are like wanting to change the world around you and be an advocate of change for the world around you, but like falling into the same traps of like redressing particular injustice over and over, and then thinking particular redress is going to solve structural injustice, which it won't. I'm sorry. Anyway, have a great rest of your weekend or day, depending on when you see this. Once again, I'm at that walkaway thing, so feel free to check that out on the 22nd if you're in the area. Otherwise, it'll be streamed. I'm gonna be plugging that pretty much every video until it's over. But anyway, have a great rest of your day and take care.